Can you hear me? Oh, good, great. So, I've been very lucky for the past 17 years to be in marketing leadership roles, and I think that the most important thing is to make sure I am giving you as much information as possible on how I have managed not to get fired. Because we all know if there's marketing leaders in the house today, the average tenure of a marketing leader in high-growth software, I think, is between 16 and 18 months. And that has been the case for years. It's not even a pandemic thing. It's even, Manny's saying it's even lower than that, I'm guessing. But I've been very lucky to experience 2 acquisitions, an IPO. I've led teams from $5 million budgets to $40 million budgets, company sizes from 5 to 30 million, all the way up to 250 million. And so this is gonna be rapid fire because it's the one session before break, and I have 42 slides in 30 minutes. So you're gonna get the deck after, I'm assuming, but we're gonna go pretty fast through all this stuff. And these are lessons I've learned, especially through Lacy, Seismic, and Jellyfish since 2015. And also what I learned at OpenView as a venture capital firm. Rest in peace, OpenView. Okay? So the 5 that we're gonna talk about, 5 ways to not get fired. If you do the opposite of these, you probably will get fired. Own a top and bottom and middle number. Understand efficiency of your team. Lead alignment efforts. Over-prepare for board meetings. And be a little irrational. Do we have any fans of Rory Sutherland? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Rory Sutherland wrote the book Alchemy. Great book. If you take anything away from this presentation, go buy that book, Alchemy. It's all about how irrationality drives creativity. Okay, so the first one, own a top, middle, and bottom number. One of my favorite quotes, which I think encapsulates all that we do as a marketing leader, marketing team, is from David Walmsley, and I heard this quote in 2012, and I still use it today. And I think this kind of talks about how marketing should own a number because it gives you a seat at the table. We must move from numbers keeping score to numbers that drive better actions. When you as a marketing leader are using numbers to keep score against any of the other go-to-market leaders in the room, whether that's a sales leader, CS leader, growth leader, and you're not using it to drive better actions, you are going to be left in the dust because the sales leader will always be the one talking in a board meeting because they are doing what? Driving revenue. And do we all appreciate revenue? Yes, we have to. That's the whole point we're here. Must move from numbers keeping score to numbers that drive better actions. So I'm gonna go through a couple things that I've done in terms of owning a number. I think the number one thing, at least in the first 90 days as a marketing leader, is you try to establish owning the reporting of a bookings or a pipeline number. For a marketing leader, I drive more towards pipeline, and you could do different attribution models. If you're a high velocity sales motion doing something that's 90-day sales cycle, probably direct source attribution. If you're more of an enterprise marketing team, it's a very different attribution model. And we're not gonna talk about ABM, but multi-touch, right? And you owning the reporting of that is very important. And it doesn't matter if you're 0 in revenue, you're seed stage, you're Series C, you should be building some type of pipeline model to help the sales team sell more deals. And you should own that pipeline number with the sales leader. You meet in the middle with them because what's the sales leader gonna want? What gets my team to 100% quota capacity, quota attainment? They're never gonna get there, that's fine, but we wanna try to get them between 80% and 100%, and then the sales leader always wants an over-assign. You've gotta meet somewhere in the middle because your teams need to have goals that are stretching them but not too crazy. You can use sales cycles, ASPs, sales coverage. Just make sure that you are talking to the sales leader about that model. It's very rare that I talk to marketing leaders who know what their head count capacity model is on the sales side. And that is very important as a marketing leader that you understand that type of coverage from a pipeline perspective. While you're working with sales, make sure you're working with finance, or if you're lucky enough to have RevOps, you're working with them to build the pipeline model for 12 months out. If you don't have enough data, give an educated guess. I've talked to too many marketing leaders between 0 and 5 million in ARR that don't have enough historical data for a lot of reasons, right? There's a lot of reasons that would be the case. They don't do it because they don't think it's a good guess. Just swag it. Take your average ASP and change it month to month depending on what's happening in the market or what's happening with your sales team. But the act of reporting on it is very, very, very important because you are owning that number and you build a better relationship with the sales leader because of it. Schedule quarterly reviews of the model, which we'll talk about, and also start looking at funnel conversion. I report on funnel conversion in our board meetings. I report on pipeline across the entire sales cycle and funnel conversion, even though I have slight control over some of it, but I want to be the one that is owning that number because it's important. And we're going to get a little bit into why that's important and how to help. It's in one of the stages of the 5 steps. Here's some examples. These are not real numbers. My CFO would kill me. On the left is more of a marketing scorecard that I use in a board deck. On the right is how we talk about pipeline creation. There's tons of different ways to do this, but I have these in my board deck, so we're talking about it constantly and we're trending the plan depending on what the model is. Okay, and make sure you have, our CEO at Jellyfish calls it being fingertippy, meaning you have the data at your fingertips at all times. This is just one way to do it, and I think it's very important for marketing leaders to do that. Okay, number 2, understand efficiency of your go-to-market channels. And efficiency can be a lot of things. You can hate me for saying this. There is no right or wrong way to measure efficiency. But who's the most important person in the room that cares about efficiency? You can say yourself as a leader, but in that board meeting or leadership meeting, who's the one person reporting on efficiency? CFO, finance. You have to align. I think marketing, we talk a lot about aligning with sales, but what I've learned over the past 5 years is it's almost as important to align with finance on how they think about efficiency of the business. Because when your programs get defunded, it's because you're not aligned with your leadership team appropriately. And when your programs get defunded, it leads to either you get burned out and leave, or what we were talking about today, which is getting fired. And you build that efficiency model across the entire go-to-market team. It's not just marketing. You own the source data, so you should also understand if you have a sales-led model, go-to-market model, what the efficiency of the BDR team is. What's the efficiency of the AE team, the sales team, if they're self-sourcing? What's the efficiency of inbound, paid ads, events? So you can also break out budgeting in that way as well. I give you these are 2 examples of how I've done it in the past. I always budget off of 3 different things: pipeline and brand. And sometimes Seismic was a big enough org where we had to budget operational efficiency as well. At Jellyfish, 70% of the program spend and headcount go towards demand creation. The other 30% goes to brand creation. Rising tide lifts all ships, we all know that. But it is important to separate when you're talking to finance, because that's how they separate it. On the right, for Jellyfish, we look more at pipeline. For every dollar spent, how much pipeline are we creating? And for every dollar spent, how much bookings are we creating? Again, there are tons of different models, but you have to align with finance to fully understand, because you don't want separation there. You don't want to be talking about efficiency in a board meeting or a leadership meeting and your finance leader's saying, actually, that's not what we look at, because then you look like an idiot. We don't want to look like idiots, right? So when we're building out these models, it's important to align with finance to do that. Third one is lead alignment efforts. I have a very weird way to phrase this, so excuse me. I find this hilarious, but creme de la creme of growth, and the creme stands for communication, revenue, enablement, and metrics. I'm only going to talk about 2 of them. We're going to talk about communication and enablement. I believe marketing should have a seat at the table for all 4 of these to force alignment, because you are the hub and spoke of the go-to-market model, in my opinion. So that's why it's important that you at least help own or at least help report on these things. First one's communication. I'm gonna go through 3 examples. A weekly communication model, a monthly communication model, and a quarterly. And I've done this this is the 3rd company I've launched something like this. And it really helps align everyone to moving in the same direction. Because when you're not moving in the same direction, it's not gonna be the sales and CS leader, it's gonna be the marketing leader that gets the brunt of the pain because you're top of funnel. All right, so weekly, I send a demand forecast email every Monday that has pipeline. I actually use it like a weather forecast. So it's either rainy, sunny, or partly cloudy, depending on how pipeline was created the week before. So if we were low on the weekly pipeline goal, but we were high on bookings, it's partly sunny. If we were high on both, it's sunny. If we screwed up, which usually is like holiday weeks, it's rainy. So you get the drift. There's 3 types, and then the sections are, you have leading and lagging indicators for pipeline. So we have it by weekly goal, we have it by segment, and we have it by quarterly, and what's our pacing for each of those. We have logos that we added in terms of deals for the week before. So opportunities we create in the logos because people like to see that and it's fun. We have a gong call of the week to review, that anybody can review, and this is sent to the entire company. I actually treat it like a newsletter where people can subscribe to it. And then we have updates from business unit leaders. So we have a marketing update, an outbound, a BDR update, a partnerships update, and an enablement update. And we send it out end of day every Monday. And it's the act of doing that that helps make sure that everyone in the org knows that this data is fingertippy. I should have called this presentation how to be fingertippy, but that would have been weird. The entire organization knows that you are thinking about this constantly. Because usually when you're not reporting or you're not talking about it, and you're never gonna be too annoying in my opinion, they usually think you're not thinking about it and you don't understand it. All right, monthly. Not gonna read these, but point for point. Launching a monthly pipeline council, and even if it's bi-weekly, is important. And pipeline council means it's marketing, CS, RevOps, sales, whoever owns revenue, pipeline and bookings, and expansion. Discuss quick wins, they look at the model, they adjust. You could see a drop in a segment. You talk about how you can work on that, whether it's mid-market or upmarket or enterprise. And it encouraged collaboration between managers. So it's not just the execs. It's the execs' direct reports. And you're constantly looking at the pipeline number and the pacing of the pipeline. Okay? Who's in the meeting? We talked about direct reports. Sometimes you can add finance. The focus is proactively communicating progress and results against priority initiatives defined by the team in the room. Okay, so there's goals that you set for this. And then success is alignment across the entire go-to-market org, your booking targets are met, and you have efficient growth because everybody's talking about it. We even go as far as to look at every single account executive and what their pipeline coverage is and how many meetings they've each booked. We go that deep in these meetings because it's important to see trends. Now, meetings can get too big and you gotta figure that out as you grow, but I found that a monthly pipeline council works really well. And then quarterly, we do a revenue handbook. And a revenue handbook is the Bible for marketing and sales and CS, which is arbitrage. So if you have a BDR that's not following up on the SLA that you set forth for an inbound lead, and they're arguing with you on whether it's a 1 hour or 1 day, you can go to the revenue handbook, which you use as a contract to say, here's what we agreed on, why aren't you meeting these expectations? It has territory mapping, it has ASP, it has account targeting, it has the SLAs between marketing, sales, enablement, CS, and you actually use it as a DocuSign and everybody on the go-to-market team has to sign it. So it's an agreement. You look at it quarterly because it's important to evolve this thing as the business evolves. You can't just set it, sit it, and ignore it. You gotta evolve constantly. I have a template if you want it. I'm on LinkedIn, just look me up on LinkedIn and I'll send it to you. But it's mostly around alignment. And then the last one's enablement. Enablement is in marketing, in the marketing team at Jellyfish. I've seen enablement in sales. I've seen sales enablement mean their own org and business ops. But I want to show you how we think about it at Jellyfish because it's central to what we do. There's 4 things that they focus on: industry, product, use case, and go-to-market, which is kind of a catch of everything. And then layered below that is new employee onboarding. And the enablement team is involved in all 4 of these things because they are also central to making sure that if you got to hire 10 account executives in 3 months, you want them to ramp fast. We don't want it to be 9 months later and half of them haven't ramped because you didn't have strong enablement or you didn't have strong territory alignment or you have a new sales manager. Enablement is key. And I think if you found product market fit and you're a marketing leader and you're post Series A, maybe going into Series B, between 5 and 15 million in revenue and you don't have an enablement person, it's important to start talking about it. Another way to gauge it is 15 to 20 account executives, you need an enablement person. It's not product marketing. I want to be very clear about that. Product marketing is product marketing, enablement is separate. The way we look at enablement, Seismic Learning is what Seismic acquired Lessonly in 2022. It's now Seismic Learning. So it's more of a learning module. And then we have Gong, of course. And Seismic also has content management. We use Confluence as well. But I mean, if there's anything you can do to not get fired, it's use Gong daily as a marketing leader. Or any call. I don't care what software you use. It's a gold mine for customer information, which you should know as a marketing leader. And this is how we think about enablement across those 4 use cases. But this is mainly where we spend our time as an enablement team. All right, 4th. I learned this pretty quickly. Depending on the board you have to over-prepare for board meetings. And that can mean a lot of different things. I've been in very friendly boards, and I've been in the exact opposite where it's high growth, high stakes, more of a buzzsaw. And that's okay, because they care about different things. But over-preparing is very important because you don't want to be in a situation where you say the 2 words that you never want to say in a board meeting, or I guess this would be 3, I don't know. You never want to say that in a board meeting. If you say, I don't know in a board meeting, you have lost credibility instantly. Even if you don't know, and it's fine to not know, it's just how you frame it. So why you should over-prepare is that is kind of your, depending on how the board meetings are, how they run, that's kind of your all-star game every quarter. That's your place to make sure that you are solidifying the fact that you are helping the business constantly and that you understand the business. And it's not just MQLs and we had a great event and when it looked beautiful and brand was awesome. I'm a brand marketer, I can say that. But it's more about driving bookings. And you understand that. And that's what's so important about over-preparing. Set aside additional time to, we call it red teaming, where you are meeting with founders and the CEO, or maybe you have a mentor that can do this, and they are ripping apart your slides and your talk track multiple times over. Multiple times over. I probably go through 5 or 6 different versions of my narrative leading up to a board meeting because we red team it about 5 times. And I've been in situations where people are like, oh, people spend way too much time preparing for board meetings and blah, 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 blah. In high growth software, especially if you have investors, it is very important to come prepared to those meetings and not half-ass it. Because you will be looking for a job in 16 months if you do that. Reintroduce challenges from last quarter and how you tackled them. And then I kind of have 4 must-have slides, and they're a combination of slides, but quarterly wins and challenges, pipeline bookings and funnel conversion numbers that align to the sales section, that also align to the finance section. You have a special topic. You should use the board to give feedback because they are in tons of meetings. They might not remember any of it, but they are there to help you. And then the quarterly look ahead, what are you doing? There's tons of different ways to play this out, and I've redesigned board slides multiple times over, but these are kind of the 4 that I usually use. So quarterly wins and challenges, pipeline, bookings, and funnel conversion. So looking at what we did and how we met the challenges we talked about before, How are we converting the funnel? How are we building and converting the funnel to help sales? What is something we need help with? Like, hey, the market's evolving. We're really competitive now. Price pressure is happening at the end of sales. Can you help us think about how to evolve our enablement process or sales? And they want to help with that. And then what are we going to do next quarter based off of all the information we just shared? And then you red team these so that you understand the gotchas in a meeting, so where you don't say, I don't know. Okay? All right, last one is my favorite one because I'm a brand marketer. Be a little irrational. I talked about Rory Sutherland. The book's Alchemy. Guy's brilliant. It is much easier to be fired for being illogical than it is for being unimaginative. The fatal issue is that logic always gets you exactly the same place as your competitors. When you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, there's going to come a time and place where it's not going to work anymore. And I've found that with creative teams, it's better to let their imaginations fly than go to them and say, we need this, it needs to have ROI, what are you going to do about it? Because when you do that, I'm not saying you don't ever do that. You need, like I said before, 70% of budget should go towards demand, but 30% should be spent to test cool ideas. I'm going to give you some examples of these. But if you aren't a little illogical as a marketer, you're just going to be doing the same damn stuff as everybody else. And that's boring. Okay? So be a little illogical. I know that it says that you could be fired for being illogical, but that's okay. I'm going to give you some examples of these. I'm a big fan of swag stores. Like, I've launched 4 of them, especially if they're done well. But there's not an ROI for a swag store. We're not getting revenue from selling t-shirts. We're losing money, probably, if they're used in the sales cycle, but I'm not saying like, hey, the swag store generated $5 million in pipeline. Now, if we miss the pipeline number, is the board going to question me about a swag store? Yes, especially if I bring it up. But I'm going to talk about one of these examples, but whether it's Legos or Golden Llama or a swag store or a board game or something that's just a little bit more imaginative than a t-shirt and a cup, coffee cup, whatever. I'm completely forgetting the name of was it Stanley that's everybody wants right now that gives you lead poisoning or something? Just think a little bit more, be a little bit more imaginative. And the Golden Llama was one that we did at Lessonly where I had a content marketing leader who came to me and said, hey, we give this Golden Llama out every quarter to an employee that exhibits our values. Why don't we give these Golden Llamas out to prospects and customers? And we said, okay, let's test it. I spray painted 1,000 little llamas, which I'm probably going to die of cancer because of it, but you can see pictures of the llamas. We sent this out to customers, and we were not expecting pipeline generation from this. Because on the card it says, give this to an employee that exhibits doing their best work. Lessonly can help you do that, but there's nothing about the product on it. But what happened was, because it was an interesting idea, I mean, I think leading up to the acquisition, I think we sent about 7,000 of these things. Eventually we got to mass produce. And it generated, we closed $500,000 in business direct source from this direct mail campaign. So it worked, but that's not what we presented the idea to be like, Golden Llama is going to create a bunch of bookings. It was about surprising and delighting people in a different way. And you have to be a little bit illogical in order to do that. All right. I don't remember what this GIF's for, but I think it's for a bonus. I have a couple bonus ones. 5 more ways to not get fired. Number 1, hire product marketing and a great designer sooner than you think, especially if you're post-Series A. Product marketing will help you scale segments, will help you scale verticals, will help you think about personas and use cases and pricing and packaging. I made the mistake of not doing that soon enough at a company, and I think in hindsight, it's easy to say, but it hurt us in the long run. And then great marketing, you need great taste. I read that on LinkedIn recently. I can't attribute it to anybody. But if you hire a great designer, it shows. And I will forever be, I wish B2B was more like consumer. That's a whole nother presentation. But hiring a great designer will help you do that. Number two, always be experimenting. We've already talked about. Make sure you're reporting back constantly on those experiments. Make sure you're scaling those experiments if they work. And make sure everybody knows that you're doing it. Internal marketing is as important as external. You want your team to rejoice too on what you're doing. Number three, marketing is only successful if bookings goals are met. I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time on this. Who cares about your pipeline if sales aren't closing deals? Then you have crappy pipeline. I don't care how much you're driving. Number four, flat orgs with high horsepower will always win in the end. This is a shift for me recently. I think that the flatter the org, the higher the horsepower, the more experience can help organizations and marketing teams much faster than hiring a bunch of junior people. That's a transition I've made over the past 7 years, 5 to 7 years. And then the fifth one, if you have the people that have high horsepower, use agencies as a supplemental support when scaling. You don't need to hire everyone in-house. Eventually you can, but there is a big difference between somebody with experience managing a fractional agency and a junior person managing a fractional agency. Most of the time, it doesn't work if it's a junior person. And that's all I got. Thank you. Appreciate it.